Welcome, friends, colleagues, and fellow book lovers to the second public event of this season. Thank you for joining us on this very special evening for many of us here in the library. Before we start, I'd like to tell you about our full season of events this fall, and just to entice you to come back into the library and learn with us. So on October 16th, and that's tomorrow, we are hosting the official opening of the current exhibition, 70 Rare Books, Special Collections, Archives. If you have an RSVP, you still have a chance to do that by sending me a note or contacting our colleagues in advancement, library advancement, and we can add you to the list or simply show up. On October 24th, we're launching the Arcana Book Project, and this is the result of a collaboration between 4 librarians and 4 artists, and then we produce 4 books as the product of this collaboration, and that's happening next Friday. On October 30th, join us for the first Friends of the Fisher lecture, and that is a Chamberlain lecture. And the topic this year is on indigenous legal traditions, feminism, citizenship, and governance. And the speaker for that lecture is Professor Val Napoleon. On November 27th is our second Friends of the Fisher lecture, and that is the Seltzer lecture. And the topic this year is also a conversation on reclaiming Black memory, forging Black possibilities. And we invited members of the Black Memory Collective here in the city, and so it'll be a conversation with Melissa Nelson, Aaron Francis, Tura Cousins Williams, and Shane Leptitz. And so that's on November 27th. And on December 3rd, we'll be hosting another conversation event, and this time is to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Hyman Book and Art Shop here in the city. So members of that shop, of the family, and others, including academics, will be joining us for a similar setup as today's event. So on behalf of my colleagues in Rare Books and Special Collections at the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library, I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to the Friends of the Fisher Library, who for the last 40 years have supported our public programming and the publication of the exhibition catalogs. Thank you for your support, or thanks to your support, we have the privilege to gather in this wonderful library tonight to learn about the life and works of one of the most influential book artists today. Ximena Pérez Grobet is a Mexican artist, graphic artist, and designer based in Barcelona. Over the last 3 decades, she has explored the creative power of the book as an artistic practice and a format of expression. From accordion books to book objects, Ximena Pérez Grobet has developed an impressive catalog of experiences by exploring the endless form of the book in her own imprint, Nowhereman Press, and also in collaboration with other artists and publishers. Many of her unique artist books are available to readers and visitors in special collections library like this one throughout Europe and North America, while her work also has been featured in galleries, museums, and libraries around the world. Tonight's conversation with Special Collections librarian John Shoesmith will provide a look into her artistic practice and creative process, including a discussion of her unique artist book, Reading Finnegans Wake, which is item number 44 in the exhibition. And before I forget, we are going to raffle a copy of one of the facsimile editions. And so if you want to enter, there's a box on your way out, and all you have to do is fill out one of these forms, and you'll be added to the Friends of the Fisher mailing list and also be entered into the raffle. Thank you for being here tonight, and please join me in welcoming our guest, Ximena Pérez Grobet.
Great. Everybody hear me okay? Perfect. I promise we'll get you out of here for those Blue Jay fans before the start of the game at 8 o'clock. I was wondering about attendance, whether the baseball game would affect us, but thankfully the game doesn't start till 8 p.m. So we'll have you out well before then. So welcome, everybody. As David said, we're very honored to have Ximena here to discuss your life and your work, but also I want to talk a little bit more about this amazing book that I will talk about in terms of my own history with it, in terms of acquiring it and using it in classroom settings. It's really one of the most, when people come to the library and they often ask all the librarians here, what's your favorite book here in the collection? I often point to this one because it's one I always use, and it's really one of my prides of acquisition. But before we get to this, I want to talk a little bit about you. We've got a bit of bio from David about your life. I want to start, though, at the beginning, and a quote that you gave from a great, wonderful little video about your storytelling, how you tell stories through your books, and you were asked what you wanted to be when you grew up, and you said, "I want to be a gift wrapper. I always wanted to be a gift wrapper." Tell us a bit about that. I mean, you're based in Barcelona now. You grew up in Mexico. Maybe talk about your experience in Mexico. Were you always interested in art, for example?
Well, yes. Well, first of all, do you hear me? Yes. Thank you very much for being here. And it's my honor to be here, really. I'm very, very honored to be in this incredible place. And I cannot be more happy to have this very special book for me in this collection. So thank you very much, John, because he was the one who pointed it. And then to be in this incredible place, and all the team of the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library, thank you. I am really, really honored, and I don't see the best place for my book to be is absolutely here. So I am really, really very honored. I'm very happy to be here because it's my first time in the library, so I'm impressed of the building, the collection, and all the program that you have all the work you are doing. So I actually did want to be wanted to be a gift wrapper, but I ended up wrapping ideas, as I say. So my studies are, I am an industrial designer, but as in Mexico, really industrial design, I was never interested. I was interested in design. And then I started working in a publishing house doing art books. But really, it wasn't enough for me. So I ended up, because of that's how life is, I ended up in New York in the Center for Book Arts. And when I arrived there and I saw all these printers, the letterpress, I just realized that was my field. And actually, it was my field because I studied in a very special school in Mexico City that came from the Spanish Republicans from the Civil War, that we had a print in every classroom. Right. So really, since I was 6-7 years old, every student would set the letters, right, would print, like for the Mother's Day, we did a book. So of course, it was a language that I had since I was small. Mm-hmm. And when I recognized myself, that's when I started doing artist books. And as it wasn't something that I really knew what I wanted. It's just something that just came showing in my life. And paper, for me, it's a medium where I really see life. So everything that has to do with paper is the way I understand life. So for me, the book, actually, I have a kind of a problem with the codex format. Okay. Because I know it's a perfect format, but I thought, well, what I want with my books, I usually I try to go out of the codex, because the codex is something that really works, but I want to give the reader a different way, another possibility to read. I mean, there's so many ways to read life, right? So why a book has to be read as a codex? It can be read by the material, by the form, by the content. There's so many elements in the book that can be treated differently. Not because that doesn't work, just to find new things. And another thing is that everyone knows what a book is. That's why I find the format as a way of working, because everyone knows that a book is to read, but how do you want to read? something that maybe doesn't look like a book, or maybe it's just different. Like when people say, oh, you do artist books. Oh, so you write. No, I don't know how to write. Ah, so you paint. No, I don't know how to draw. So it's funny because we're used to think that books, it's only text and image. So I try, my process working with my books is try to go further than that, always hoping to give the reader a different experience.
Did you have any early influences then? Because, I mean, I think of artist books as still a relatively new medium for a lot of people. I mean, I think of myself in terms of my introduction to artist books. I went to galleries and I'd see paint pictures on the wall, I'd see sculpture. Artist books were never really part of my vocabulary until I came here and I started using them and understanding them a bit more in our collections. So did you have any early influences when you were really discovering the medium of artist books?
Well, I did have, but I realized like long after I had their influence, you know, when you realize, oh, now I understand why, but like a lot of years after. So actually, yes, my mother was a photographer, but she did artist books, but I didn't realize when I saw the books until, you know, a lot of years after that. She was a photographer, but with painters that were friends, they did publications. Or her second husband was someone that was really important in the artist books world. Or there's I don't know if you know Ulises Carrion. Okay. Well, he is a very like a very important figure in the artist books world. Well, he used to go to my house, but for me, he was no one. Right. You know, I didn't know who he was. Right. Until then, you know. So that's what's funny. I think influence is something that is just, you know, all of us are influenced by something, but you don't realize until it comes to you, right? So of course I did have an influence, but in a very natural way.
Can I ask you a question that people always ask me? What is an artist book? It's a tough one to. First of all, there's no standardization of where to put the apostrophe on artists, for example.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, if you had to define the term artist books, how would you define it?
I would define it. An artist book is a piece of art.
Right. Nothing more than that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, it's very confusing because it's a huge range of definitions that you can have as an artist book, right? Right. But I find that it's like a piece of art to be read as a sequence. Right. I would say. Okay. Right, because a book is always a sequence. Right. So that maybe is different from a piece of art only. Right. I mean, a paint or a sculpture, it's one piece. Maybe a book, no, it's a sequence that you have to go through.
Was there ever a time then that you suddenly decided I can call myself an artist with this work that I'm doing?
Yes.
Yes, which was when? Like, can you pinpoint maybe a book that you produced or something in your life that finally said, okay, I'm an artist who does artist books?
Well, because when I started doing artist books, I also did editorial design. Right. So when I finished doing editorial design, and I thought, well, this is it, and I just kept on doing artist books. Right. So maybe that's when I decided that was my.
So you were in New York, and then you've moved. When did you move to Barcelona?
I started doing artist books in 1994, so that's 30 years ago. And I moved to Barcelona 20 years ago. Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I think about your, growing up in Mexico and living in Barcelona. Obviously, there's a shared language. Mm-hmm. But in terms of culturally, what Mexico left with you and what Barcelona and Spain has given to you now, can you talk a little bit about maybe how that's affected your work over the years?
Well, I think it's, you have like both codes of both countries. So I still work in Mexico. I work with artists. So how I divide my work is because at some point, well, when I started doing artist books in New York, I started doing a workshop, and our teacher said, well, why don't you set up a name for your press? Mm-hmm. I thought, I have to get a name. So that's when I decided to call it Nowhereman Press, because Nowhereman comes from the Yellow Submarine LP. Mm-hmm. That there was a little Nowhereman, and mm-hmm. I used to talk. He was my friend, and so I would grab the LP and talk with the Nowhereman. So I thought, well, this is going to be my press. So I decided that my own work was going to be called Nowhereman Press, and then I also work with other artists or all the commissions that I had as editorial designer.
Okay.
So that's how I divided my work. But I still work in Mexico, so it's nice because of course every place is different. So it's very nice to work with Mexican artists, with Catalan or Spanish artists. So it's always, I believe in a multidisciplinary world, to really get to use like all your skills and all what you've seen and what you are at the end, right?
Let's talk a bit about your process then, your artistic process. And I want to go back to this idea of being a gift wrapper. Because obviously when you're wrapping gifts, you're thinking of the amount of paper you need, the format, how it gets folded, but then also eventually the package gets unwrapped. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your process in terms of what's your starting point when you begin working on a project. Is it the idea that you come up with? Is it a format thing you think of? And maybe I could adapt an idea to that. So maybe you can talk me through, and maybe it's different with every project.
No, I do have a process I use in all the books. I start with an idea. I don't know what's it going to be, and that sometimes the idea is something that I've worked unconsciously like years before, sometimes not. But I start with the idea, and then I think, how do I want to work it? What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? For me, it's very important, the content and the container. The container has to talk about the content. Otherwise, I don't know how to do it. So I start with idea. I start with the format, how I want to show it, and then the materials. But then everything has to be parallel, because maybe sometimes I think, okay, I'm going to do it this way with this paper. Then I look for that paper, but that paper doesn't work because I want to maybe print it this way, but in that printer, this paper doesn't fit. So everything goes like in parallel. And so I'm not a printer. I know we were saying about this morning. A lot of people that would do artist books are printers. I'm not a printer. I don't have a workshop, a letterpress work. I don't, because every book demands a different way of printing. So I believe that everyone is like cooking, right? Everyone has their own recipe. I mean, maybe you do a pasta, but everyone does a different pasta. So I think in a creative world, I think it's about really getting to know your own recipe, your own ingredients. So for me, my ingredients is printing. For example, if a book says, okay, I want to do engraving, I go with engraver. If I want to do letterpress, I go with the letterpress. If I want to do offset, I go to the printer. So every book, I see what is this book telling me? What is this project telling me that it needs? And then I go and look for it. So another very important thing is I listen. I don't say. I listen. I don't think I'm talented enough to know what I want. So I just have the thing, outside and say, okay, what do you need? No, for me to go and get it. And that way, it's incredible, because then, for example, once it happened to me, I was doing a book in letterpress, and I wanted to do it some size, but then I was going to print it in letterpress, and I wanted the spine, it had to be only one piece of paper. Well, it didn't fit. So I said, okay, instead of saying, no, I want it to fit, so I'm going to do it because that's the way I decided. No, I said, okay, what's the biggest? This is the biggest? Okay. If I divide it, okay, instead of being like this, it's going to be like this. Perfect. That's the way it has to be. And of course, that is something that I have gained with the work, with the process. Something that in the beginning, I was very stubborn and I wanted to do it my way. And I've learned that, no, I have to listen and see what's the way it has to be.
Well, it sounds like you're leaving room and space during your process for happenstance and luck. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it works. It works really well. And you know what? It's more fun. Everything is easier.
Right.
It's like so much simple.
Right.
And I think the result talks about, I mean, it speaks in itself.
Right.
No? You can really appreciate what I'm saying in the book itself.
One of the things we were talking about over lunch was a class I took with Joanna Drucker, who literally wrote the book about artist books.
Exactly.
I mean, she is the primary researcher in the area of artist books. And the one thing I took away from her class was that you can have the best idea for a book, but if you don't have either the skill set or the technique to pull it off, then who cares about the concept? It's never gonna work. Have you ever run up to into a situation where you might have this great idea for a book, but maybe you just couldn't do it?
You know what happens is very funny. When that happens to me, a huge amount of patience comes to me.
Okay.
It's like, I think it's patience, but you know, I've had experiences like once I was doing this book that I wanted to be carpenter ruler, okay? Well, it took me 3 years to produce it because I had to look for a carpenter ruler that was blank. I mean, I could get like 10,000 pieces. They would sell me 10,000 pieces. All of them were marked with numbers, you know. So until I found it, you know, I found it in Australia, then I printed it in Spain, then I got the boxes in Mexico. So it was like, so yeah, I think it's a challenge. When something like that happens, for me it's a challenge. And because if you're open, then if you see that a way you're going, it doesn't work, then go and find another way.
Right. Okay.
And then you'll find it.
And maybe you'd put it aside for a while until
Until it, exactly. Don't force.
Yeah. The other thing I love about artist books, especially in a library setting where I use them often, is that it really makes artwork accessible to so many other people that, for example, you go to an art gallery, you can't touch the paintings. You can't touch the sculptures on display. But yet with an artist book, you can hold it in your hand. It's so much more accessible. Maybe you could talk a little bit about in terms of the importance of that kind of tangibility and handleability, the way books can be handled by your users and readers.
Well, you know what? Something that I like about doing books is that books are meant to be read.
Right.
So in a way, for me it's a advantage.
Right.
Because I know that if I do a book, I know that if I give it to you, you know you have to read it. In a way, whatever is your way to read. But so that I like. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's something that for me, when I approach my work to the format of the book, I found it very convenient.
Right.
Because it's easier.
Right.
I know that the way is like traced in a way, and I like that. So, I mean, once, for example, I showed my book to someone, and he said, "Oh, but this is very complicated," because my books, of course, has lots to do with architecture. Architecture is something that is a lot in my world. And because I did industrial design, for me, 3 dimensions is very important, and talking about space. Right. So when I showed this person this book, and he said, "But it's very complicated," and I said, "Well, don't read it."
Right.
I mean, you don't have to.
Life is short. You don't need to.
I mean, just don't. I mean, I'm not going to be offended. Just don't read it.
Right.
So, and then, for example, this carpenter, it ended up being a really good piece. Well, people have lots of fun with it because you have to open it to read it. So and when you see the ruler, you say, well, something's happening here.
Right.
And that's my intention. When you see my book, only see it, you know that you'll be, okay, something's going on.
Right.
Then whatever, if you're interested or maybe not, maybe it's very boring. But I try to open your eyes visually before getting into it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Let's move to Finnegans Wake, Reading Finnegans Wake. So I mean talk about difficult to read, impenetrability. So I came upon this book. I'll tell you a little story. So I was in New York City in March 2020. I was actually there for a Marshall McLuhan symposium at New York University, but at the same time the New York Antiquarian Fair was going on. And so I wasn't there as a purchaser. I was there as just kind of observer with a couple of my colleagues. And I came upon this book that was being sold by Ian Kahn of Lux Mentis. Mm-hmm. And it just attracted me right away. I said, "What is that?" And so Ian pulled it out and showed it to me. And I thought, what an ideal book to add to our collection for many reasons. One is that we're a great collector of Irish literature at the library in our Delury collection. We collect artist books, but even more important is we have Marshall McLuhan's working library. And for those that don't know, Marshall McLuhan, Finnegans Wake and James Joyce was one of his touchstones. He loved reading Joyce and claimed, somewhat, I think, probably he cracked the code of Finnegans Wake. And so I thought it would be a perfect addition to our library. Unfortunately, I was there and not purchasing materials, but Ian promised he would keep it on hold for me until we had the funds. It was March 2022, so those don't remember, we had something called COVID, and so the world shut down. But 6 or 7 months later, I was able to purchase this book and add it to the collection. And I know you were very adamant when. We'll talk a bit about the making of the book, but you were pretty adamant that you wanted it in a public institution. Is that right?
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
I mean, why is that?
Well, this book, I took it to a book fair where Ian Kahn, this bookseller, he saw it, and he wanted it. And when, well, it took me a lot, around 10 years to finish this set of books. So he wanted, when he saw it, the first volume, he wanted it, and I said, yes, but I have to finish it. So when I finished it and he took it, this book for me, I think is one of the most personal and important projects in my work. And so I wasn't interested in selling it, really.
Right.
Because it was so personal, and I'm not doing this. I mean, I don't do my work to sell. Of course, if I sell it's good, but that's not the purpose. So when Ian said he was so interested, so I said, okay, take it, but I'm just gonna tell you something. It has to go to an institution. I don't want any private person having this private collection having my book. It has to go to the public. So yeah, that was something that I told Ian that so he knew from the beginning that was going to be a possible buyer.
Yeah. So let's talk then about the process of making this book. For those that, I don't know if anybody's tried to read Finnegans Wake, it is extremely difficult. I don't think anybody's truly read Finnegans Wake, but it's in terms of its language and its complexity. What drew you to Finnegans Wake?
Well, I once, like a few years before I started doing Finnegans Wake, I was invited to do a project with the color blue in Spain.
Okay.
And I knit since I was a little girl. I love knitting. And I started knitting blue paper.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm going to do a book. I started knitting the paper, but I didn't know if that was going to work. But it did work. So I knitted the paper, and then I pressed it, and then I did an accordion, and I thought, well, this is really an incredible structure when I press the knitted paper. Okay, so that turned out fine, the exhibition, whatever, and then I thought, no, but this has to go further. And I thought, I wanna knit text.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, the only text that has really a sense to be knitted is Finnegans Wake. I mean, as easy as that.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't that difficult.
Right.
Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
projects are, you take like months thinking about it, and then some projects are just like that, very easy. Because I was not interested in the knitted paper, no? I mean, everyone has seen knitted paper a lot, but I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in the concept of knitting language.
Right.
And I thought, this is a perfect homage to James Joyce, to make visually the complexity of the book, because as we were saying, if you don't know nothing about Finnegans Wake and you have in your hands a printed book, well, until you start seeing that, reading that, you don't understand anything, then you start thinking that this is very complex book. But of course, if you see this, it's visually, well, you see that it's unreadable. So when I showed this book in some book fairs, it was very interesting because a lot of people would say, exactly as the original. It's unreadable. So yeah, that's why that was the initially idea. But as we were saying about process, it was very interesting because when I started trying to knead the paper, it was very difficult. The paper would drip. I felt so stupid kneading paper. I was like, Ximena, are you sure? My kids were like watching TV, and I was, trying to knit paper. And I say, I think I'm really going crazy. I mean, this is like too much. It was very difficult, like to get to, to find the needles, to get to really all the research around, to be able to get the work done. And then I thought it was very interesting is not only the concept of knitting the language and knitting the book, but also, as I say, when you see it knitted, say, okay, it's a knitted paper, but when you press it, becomes a page.
Right.
And I think that is the important, the pivot, the
Right.
turning point. Because then it becomes a page, and then it comes back to the book. That, of course, that was something that I had clear, that it was not only unbinding the book, putting it in the paper shredder, doing all the rounds. That was lots of work. And then, of course, it has to go back to the paper,
Right.
to the format of the book. So I kept the covers. And then when I put it back together, that's when I realized that, of course, it wasn't going to get in one volume.
Yeah.
That's why it ended up in 4 volumes. And the interesting thing was that I kept the title page and all the first pages of the book. So in order to really preserve the book itself,
To preserve the narrative.
narrative, and the structure.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it was really nice because actually the book has 4 parts, and it ended up in 4 volumes. So I didn't calculate that. That was like that. So that's why it's all about coincidences in this project. Or for example, this is a 1965 edition. I was born in 1965. Then it's a really beautiful favor edition that has the same typeface as the first edition
Right.
of the Finnegans Wake.
Yeah.
So that was another beautiful coincidence. Now, when I went to Paris to the Shakespeare and Company, and they had a first edition of the Finnegans Wake, and when I opened it, I thought, oh, it's the same typeset. So that was a really fantastic surprise. So all in this book has been about surprises.
Right.
So anyway, I did the first volume, and then, well, it took me a lot. Of course, I didn't have time, to knit 8 hours every day. So it took me a lot of years to be able to knit it. So
Would you work on it, put it aside?
Yes,
Yes.
I mean, I did the first volume because I had to present it in Italy in an exhibition, and then I took it to Codex, into the book fair. Then I think the second volume, it took me like 2 or 3 years. And then when Ian wanted it, I think I had 2 volumes knitted.
Right.
And then Codex is a book fair in the States. That's where I met him. So in 2 years, I had to have it finished. So then I had to run to have it finished for that
Right.
Codex when he took it with him.
Okay.
So yeah, but and then I did a video that it's on my website or on the internet.
Yes,
You
I
can-
encourage anybody to take a look at that video. It's
because
amazing.
it's me knitting. Because again, if I show you the book and you see it, you say, well, it's nice, but how is it done? Maybe you don't think it's knitted. So for me, as I said, the concept was so important that I did this video that I've presented it. No, well, you saw it in an exhibition. I think it really complements the project because you understand why, no? And for example, my friends would say, but you're very serious in the video. And I said, you know what? I'm working.
Yes.
And it's very difficult. I mean,
Right.
I'm really concentrating because
Right.
it's not easy to knit the whole thing, So that's another thing that it was very, very funny. But yeah, for me, it was very important, that video, so you could really understand what was going on, right?
How did it feel to cut up a book, though? Because, I mean, sometimes I show a book like this, and people say, how dare someone, take scissors to to a book like this and to reimagine it. But I mean, altered books are such a big part of the artist book world. So I mean, in terms of that physical aspect of cutting it up, was there?
But I turned it. I returned it to the book.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
I was just transforming it.
Right.
And a lot of people said that, or for example, the video also, they would say, but what would Joyce have said? And a lot of people say he would have loved it.
Right.
To see
Sure,
you knitting
of course.
and then
Yeah.
getting his book again.
Yeah.
With a lot of respect.
Yeah.
Because the book is there.
Right.
I didn't destroy Finnegans Wake.
Right.
It's another way of reading Finnegans Wake.
Right.
And I think, as we were saying, no one really reads literally reading the Finnegans Wake. There's
Right.
so many ways to read, right? I mean, there's so many people who have done read it with music, or I mean, there's so many ways people have read Finnegans Wake. So this is another way of reading. Or for example, when I was knitting, I was reading.
Right.
So
Okay.
it was like, oh wow,
Okay.
wow! So it was really fun.
Okay.
And that's
It was a discovery of the book for you then. And
exactly.
yeah.
That was my way of reading, and
Right.
a lot of people say, "But you have read it?"
Yeah.
While I was knitting it.
Knitting it. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, but in my way.
Right.
And so I think that's, in a way, the intention of the book, isn't
Right.
it?
Yeah. For sure.
Otherwise, Joyce wouldn't have done what he did
Yep.
with all these language
Right.
options and ideas and structures, and I think he really wanted to take the reader
Yeah.
out of the comfort zone.
So, as I was telling you at lunch, and in the exhibition, I've paired it with the Marshall McLuhan first edition that is heavily annotated. There's 4 or 5 editions of Finnegans Wake in the McLuhan library, but we have the first edition on display. I mean, how do you feel about, your edition next to the McLuhan copy?
Well, I mean, for me it's an honor. For me it's really like, wow, I would have never expected something like that to happen.
Right.
I think the dialogue is, it's for me, of course, I admire a lot Marshall McLuhan. That's why also when I knew that you had his books, I thought, my goodness, this is a gift.
Yeah.
So for me, it's an honor to be besides him. And in a way, the other day I learned a word that is a science that is called stenography. Do you know what that is?
No.
Well, the stenography is hidden messages in audio, text, and image.
Okay. Yeah.
And the difference is that it's not crypted message.
Right.
It's only hidden.
Okay.
So I
So
thought-
it's there to be discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there, exactly.
Yeah.
In a very innocent
Right.
way,
Right.
So I thought, well, that's it.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful that it's besides. I mean, for me, it's just like, being besides McLuhan is.
Yeah.
a gift.
As I was telling you at lunch, I love using Finnegans Wake, the McLuhan copy and your copy, just to kind of, as you say, it's in dialogue, and that's one of when we purchase materials here, we often think about books that are in dialogue, books that you don't necessarily think are related in one way, but then you put them next to each other and you think, yes, they do make sense when they're paired like that.
And it's like, no, when you talk with someone, you're listening and then you're saying, and
Right.
then it's a dialogue, and,
Yeah.
and you learn and you give, and yeah, I think the idea of giving a different opportunity
Right.
to read.
Yeah.
I think that's my intention in all my books.
Right.
Just a different way to see things.
Right.
I think it's so important in life. Like, if you always see this, why don't you go on the other side and see what you see?
Right.
Why not?
Yeah.
And the playful.
Yeah.
I think sense of humor, it's basic.
Right.
Right? So if you can play with it.
Are there other projects that you've spent, a number of years working like this in terms of a 10-year-long project, or is this really the only one?
Yeah, this is the only
Okay.
one. I mean, of course, every project is different, but yeah, the longest one for
Right,
sure.
okay.
Yes.
What do you think? We live in an age of AI. We live in a digital world. We live in a world where a lot of people are consuming information via the internet, digital means, etc. What is the place, do you think, for artist books in our current society?
I think it's the complementary of all the digital world.
Right.
I think it just complements. When people say no, they're going to disappear or whatever. No,
Right.
I think it's just complements. If you put it in the balance, no, it's just. I mean, you have to have, okay, all the virtual world is amazing and it has so many possibilities, but people like to feel, people like to see, to grab, to, the material
Right.
world is also very important.
Right.
So again, it's a dialogue, and it can be, they can play together and be together. Why not?
And I guess the great thing about artist books, from my perspective anyway, is that it's still a relatively new artistic medium. And I think there's still areas for it to grow. And I think, in terms of some of the work that you're doing, some of the work that some of the Canadian artists are doing, I think they're still exploring this idea of what you can do with the book. Are you still finding that? I assume you're still finding that as well.
Absolutely, and I think it, as we were saying later, the range is so big,
right,
that you can. It's a discipline that you don't have to be a book artist to do an artist book. Maybe a photographer can do artist books, or a sculptor doing artist books. It's an artistic discipline, a new artistic discipline. So it's so open that materials, artists, any artist can be interested
Right.
in saying something with a book,
Right.
because a book is a democratic and a worldwide known object,
right,
and everyone is familiar to
yeah,
it.
exactly.
So that's very nice, because so then any artist can have an approach with the object and use their own language. I think that's something very important too.
Right.
Have your own language. In a book, it's just like, well, it fits
Mhm.
automatically.
Yeah.
No?
Can you give us a sense of what you're working on right now? Some of the current projects?
Well, I just finished a book about horizons. So it's a book that measures 20 meters long.
Wow.
And it's a series of photographs that all together photographs of a line that is an horizon, but it doesn't really exist. So it's around 150 photographs, really abstract photographs, just to see the line. So it's it's a leporello, of course, and it's really interesting. And 2 weeks ago, we had a launch in London to present it. It's a part of a collective, and it was really nice because we were asked to have a performance. So each artist did a performance, and my performance was to spread the book and give all the people of the audience to read it at the same time.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that was really nice, because I said, okay, we're going to read it at the same time, all of us, and
Wow.
spread it and see all the horizon.
Right.
So that's the last book I did, and then I'm working on a project of architecture.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So so the idea it's I called it bidimensional architecture. So it's
Okay.
going to be a collection of artist books about more modernism architecture,
Okay.
from modern movement
Right.
architecture. So the idea is to start from the idea of the architect, from the lines of that, make the project of the architecture, and have those lines lined to the spine of the book.
Wow.
So it's
okay.
kind of abstract, but
Okay.
I'm working on that.
Great. I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. If David, there's a microphone up here if you want to grab that. Anybody have any questions? Yep. Andrew's got a question.
Curious about the paper knitting, kind of pitfalls and experimentation you had to do to kind of figure out that process.
Yes, it was very difficult. Really, there were moments where I was really going to stop it and not continue. To give it up. I started doing it with very thick needles. It would just break. The paper would just rip, absolutely. And then at the end, I found out that with the thinnest needle was the best way to knit, and then very loose. To find the looseness to be able to knit was the more difficult part. And then another very difficult thing was that while knitting, that you can see it in the video, the thread would go like this, and trying to put it back together, that was the most difficult thing. And then I had to design, of course, the measurement of the page. So and then another thing that I find really nice is how, like, the thread, the thread finishes like this. It's just like the words come out. So yeah, it was kind of difficult. And then when I had it pressed, I had a professional binder to bind the whole set. Yes, but yeah, knitting paper was kind of difficult. It was, yes.
Did you experiment first then on without not the McLuhan, but not the Joyce one, but did you experiment first before you really started to?
Oh yeah,
work on this?
it was months.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot before that. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Did you ever get to a point thinking, "What have I started?"
Yeah. No, as I was saying, it was like, I don't think this is gonna work.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Right.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
But just patience.
Right.
And then a lot of people, when they see the video, would say, "Well, why don't you ask someone to knit it for you?" I thought, well, the good thing is to do it, right?
Two more questions. One here and one.
I was wondering how you managed to cut how did you cut the pages to form the thread, or did you undo it by each how do you call it? You know how books are put together by the page you fold it, and then you have like a whole
Signature.
Did you cut it by signatures? Like, does it, how, or did you at some point knot it together, like, yeah?
Yes, so I took the volume, I unbounded it, okay, and the signatures, I because it was sewn, right? So that was another thing. It was a 1965 edition. So those holes were the ones that knitting would, when I arrived to that part, they would certainly rip, okay? But before that, I would unbound, I would take the sewn out, and I would have not the signature, but the double page, okay? I mean, a piece of paper would be a double page. And that double page, I would put it in the paper shredder. Put it in the paper shredder, and then take it out, get all the little threads, glue them, and then do round, like
And do your
I don't know how you say in English, the round, like a,
like the bobbin.
exactly. And then I had to put a number. No, it was, I can tell you. I mean,
You're probably thinking, "Why did I even I can't believe I've done this."
And of course, I had to do it every double page that I put in the paper shredder. I would then have to do the whole process. Otherwise, can you imagine having 600 pages? No, impossible. There was an order. Of course, you had to have a lot of order. Otherwise, it was hell. So I think I ended up having like 120 circles with a rounded threads. Yeah, in the video you can see that.
Yeah,
It's
I'm very intrigued.
Yes, and then well I
Because I knit too, so
Okay.
I know how the thread, like it starts winding.
and why exactly. So trying to all this it was like all the time. Otherwise I couldn't knit. Yeah, but I you know what, I think it's very nice when you have your own skills and you find the way through because you know how to do, because you really want to know how to do it, so that was really nice.
I mean, it's important, I think, to the understanding of the book then, is the video itself, in terms of how the making of it.
That's why for me the video it's important,
Right.
because I think it really explains.
Right.
I mean, I just met this lady that for some coincidence, she saw an exhibition in Mexico where the video was with this, that we're going to talk about this now, so you really get the idea of the project. So what we were saying is that after the video, and after, of course, it was my first time doing an only copy, that I knew it was going to end up somewhere. Of course, not the best place like this, but anyway. So what I decided is to make the book of the book. Because, of course, I said, well, I mean, I'm grateful that you are able and that this is available to the public, but I didn't know that was going to happen. So I did this set, which is like the book of the book, that this is offset printed, of the 4 volumes. and the photographs are really nice. So I've exposed it, not the exhibition you saw, where the photographs like that, the whole 4 sets, and you can really see, like if you were looking at the original. You're very lucky to have the original here, but most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up and I think it's part of like a little bit like Finnegans Wake, right?
Right.
It's a
Yep.
round thing.
Yep.
So why don't do it? Start with the book, going back to the book, through the book.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. You had a question, I think.
thank you.
Earlier you said something about how seeing the process of the book making complements the why, which made me think of what Martin would say, how like the medium is the message. So I'm wondering, like in line of that, do you think that the process of making books is also probably part of the message as well? Like, does it inform the message? Does it transform the way you indulge with the message, or is it also just like another medium of the message in its sense? And because like I love books, I read books, and I never read a single book like just once. Sometimes I even challenge myself to read in a different language just to like see if I can get like a different meaning, right? But it always it interprets differently. But I never thought about like going beyond to like actually thinking about the process that went into making this book, and maybe that could like help fill in the blanks or like the spaces of the book that I don't understand.
Well, I think this is maybe something that really defines artist books, talking about
Right.
definition, right? The process. Because you're talking about materials, and you're talking about ways of printing or saying, or the message, whatever the message is, or the idea. In this case, maybe the idea and the message is the same. And also the process is not only part of the message, but the process gives you message of how to continue working on the book. And then what's going to be in as a final object, I don't know. So what I was talking about, listening, no, about really seeing what's next. So that's like getting the message of the own process. So for me, the process is not only important for me, but for the book itself, for the artist's book itself. Thank you.
Question there.
Thank you so much for your enlightening discussion. I have some questions about the role of the artist book in the art gallery. Now, I find it interesting that these days you can't even touch a bronze sculpture, never mind touch a fragile book. So I've always appreciated books for their tactility, the fact that I take them to bed with me and I'm touching them for the entire time. And that's part of the process for me. And yet when we make an artist book, oftentimes far more tactile than a traditional book, and yet they're so fragile that the way of experiencing them on that tactile level is not allowed in our gallery. And I wonder how you get through that contradiction.
Yes, it is a contradiction. First of all, I think galleries are not the best place for artist books, for the first thing.
Libraries are.
Libraries are, exactly. Yes, because in a gallery, you're not supposed to touch. So that is about start, right? We're not starting very well. I also think that that books tells you how to touch them. Like if you see a fragile book, I think it's more you take care of how you're going to touch it, right? I think that it's a message, right? So in a way, that doesn't mean that everyone is going to touch it with care. Of course. But you know what? You cannot control that. So I like fragile books, but I like them to be treated with respect. So not much to control that.
I think that's one of the reasons why artists actually like working in the medium of the book, simply because it does get it in people's hands.
Exactly.
And I think that's such an important part of what I like about artist books, especially, is that I can hold these things in my hand. I can, I can interact with it. And this is why, we are so intent on building our artist book collection here at the library, because it does put those works of art into people's hands.
But I think what's important is the context.
Right.
Because if you come to a library, you know that you can have the book and touch the book.
Right.
Whether if you're in a gallery, then you have this problem. So, but it depends. It depends, because there are galleries that you can touch the book. So, for example, it's very typical they put some gloves beside the book.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to put your gloves on and be able to manage the book. So.
And that happened to me actually in a
Yeah.
gallery here in Toronto. That an owner wanted me to look at an artist book, and she said, "Can you put on the gloves?" And for me, that's difficult for
Yes.
special collections librarians to be putting gloves on and handling materials. So, because that's what we usually preach, is that we don't like wearing gloves. So
Yes. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
me also. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like to put gloves, of
yes,
course.
so
But
It mediates the tactile experience.
exactly, Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly,
absolutely.
exactly.
The reason for it is because of the preservation of the book for future generations.
As long as your hands are clean, that's the important part.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that, no?
Yeah, well, it's a spectrum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cleanliness
Hmm.
and archival concerns. And again, it's a balancing act
And-
where you lay your own position.
And then you know what? It's interesting because, for example, in book fairs, it's very funny. You can see who is really interested in the book, on how they touch it, how they handle it. That's incredible. And that's interesting, because then you not the approach, but you were saying how you handle the book.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ian was very great when I saw the book in the New York at the Antiquarian Book Fair. He just said, "Oh, let's take a look at it then." So yeah, so he was very keen on me handling the book and touching it. So
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's a way of really getting to know the book.
Exactly.
It's a way to read the book
Exactly.
at the end.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Any additional questions?
I'm just sort of moving along in the discussion that we're already having, but I know when I encounter here in a book that's out, a scribbling in the margin, which is certainly something I don't encourage my students to do. I don't do it myself. But in historical books, those are sometimes the most interesting parts of the book, or the thing that we treasure the most is these sort of footprints of
Mhm.
ancestors, like carvings of names of choir boys from 1200 AD, right? So we work really hard now not to allow those kinds of interactions with objects. But I wonder what, moving forward, we're preserving these objects, but stuck in their moment.
I always tell students when they come in, and especially when we look at the McLuhan copies of any of his books and how heavily annotated there are, and because he really interacted very closely with his books. I always tell people, if it's your own book, go wild. Like, write in your book as much as you can. Just don't write in a library book. So we do tell that, and because they offer so many clues, I think, to to someone that's viewing it years. For the McLuhan books especially, it's like we always call it reading over McLuhan's shoulder when you're interacting with his library collection. So.
You've been involved in book arts communities here in the U.S. and then in Spain and Mexico. I'm wondering if you find differences in how people approach the book arts or the reception to book arts amongst the different places.
You mean the people in these different places?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, especially because you do quite a bit of collaborative work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, of course, every place has its own characteristics and differences. The Latin world is quite similar in a way. I mean, and we were saying that today at lunch. I think in the American world, the English, I've worked a lot with an English collective. I've been in book fairs in London. The people from the English world countries, I think there's a more, the Anglo-Saxon culture has more book arts culture. I think it's new in the Latin America, even though Mexico, for example, has a really big history in a very, very strong history in artist books, but in a different way, more in the making than in the public, you know. I think more in what we were saying, that a lot of kind of artists do artist books. So yeah, it's different. It's different. But I find that English-speaking countries know more about artist books world than the Latin American ones, I can say. Yeah, they're more familiar. Maybe there's more history, maybe.
Right. Well, it's going to be growing. Well, I mean, even you say in Mexico, probably, and other Latin American countries, it's still a medium that's finding itself, I think.
Well, and of course there is. I mean, in a lot of countries there is a lot of tradition, more in printing, engraving, and even so in artist books. But maybe they have not been shown enough. Maybe also, but I think now it has been very popular worldwide, in all countries, Latin America, Europe, the States, here in Canada.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very interesting thing that it has become so popular worldwide, because, you know, sometimes in some place it can be, but worldwide, and so that's nice. It's very interesting, because the more for example, book fairs, that's how I show my work, you really get to see more wide bookmakers worldwide. Even each time more and more cultures, like, and countries, mixture of cultures in the books. Yeah.
I was even telling you in Canada, I mean, there's a tradition in Quebec that's different from a tradition in Ontario. In Quebec, that's more livre d'artiste. In Ontario is less of that. And then there's a whole book arts community out in the West Coast as well. So, I mean, even within countries like Canada themselves, there's a lot of I would say there's quite a bit of regional difference.
Yeah, and as we were saying, it's really, I mean, the range is so big. Because, of course, another thing that has helped or influenced in this making of books is that nowadays, all of these self-published books, right? So that widens the spectrum a lot. So that's why it's so difficult to say what's an artist book, what's now the fanzines, the photo book, there's so many terms now. It's very difficult, and maybe it's not necessary to put it all in the same box, because it doesn't fit. I mean, it's huge. So, for example, in the book fairs, some book fairs are only artist books, some is fine press printing, or all kinds of books, or fanzines, or, So the spectrum is really, really big. So I prefer not to, to put it in a one side only.
Yeah. Any additional questions?
I have one.
Okay.
We've been talking about tradition, Latin America, but early on you mentioned Ulises Carrión, who I find today is still influencing, I would say, a new generation of independent publishers, radical publishers, artisanal publishers throughout Latin America, who are either rereading or discovering his writings on the book arts from an international approach. He was tied to Mexico, other places in Latin America, but his practice took him around the world. So can you tell us more about Ulises Carrión and your own experience with his work?
I mean, as you say, I think he's the most important influence in people who do artist books nowadays. He was Mexican. He started doing artist books in Mexico, but then he left Mexico and he went to live to Holland, to Amsterdam, and that's where he opened his publishing house, we may say, other books and so. And actually, he, as I say, that he used to go to my house because my mother's second husband, he was Felipe Ehrenberg, and he did this incredible project in the 70s in England called Borges Press. And they started doing artist books, and that's when Ulises arrived with them and decided he wanted to do an artist book, and it was his first artist book. And he arrived in Holland, and I think he is the one that really, well, in a way, decoded, right, what the book is and the publication and all that. But the funny thing is that he's a really worldwide reference, and from Amsterdam, because he did all his really work out of Mexico. Yeah, but yeah, he's an absolute reference, and because one thing that one is a very specific characteristic about his work is the reading, not the object, right? The concept of reading. I think that's why he's so important. Yeah. Yeah, he has a very famous work that says, reader, please don't read, right? So, yeah, he's an incredible reference.
I think we should probably wrap it up here. Thank you, Ximena. This has been wonderful.
No, thank you very, very much.
I would encourage you to look at take a look, first of all, behind us. You can see the couple of volumes that we have on display of Reading in Finnegans Wake. You can see it in the exhibition where it's paired next to the McLuhan copy, first edition of Finnegans Wake as well. Well worth your time. I see my friend Adam is here, who has done, who's part of One Little Goat Theater, and they're actually filming. If you're interested in Finnegans Wake, they're filming all of the chapters read by one of the most amazing Irish actors you'd ever see in terms of reading Finnegans Wake, so I'd encourage you to seek that out as well. We did a filming here just about a year ago, which was great fun. So again, if you're interested in Finnegans Wake, it's a fantastic resource. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully maybe we'll see some of you tomorrow night at the exhibition opening. Maybe we'll see you at the Arcana launch next week as well. And please come and use our collections. That's what we always like to talk about as well.
And don't forget on your way out,
Yes.
Thanks again.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.